Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka the Movie Mystic. If you enjoy these film reviews, then please press the like button, subscribe, hit the bell, and stay in the know. Subscribing to this channel means you get to watch the coolest new film industry interviews, hear some groovy film reviews, and get some live streams too. Twin Peaks The Return is one of the greatest accomplishments in television, in my opinion, because it is nothing like the original show for the 90s and stands up to me in 2020 as straw material. I will say, before commenting on part 1 of The Return, that it is best to be watched together, preferably with no pause with part 2. It plays as a great launchpad and as a movie made for television. The first images show that Dale Cooper is still in the alternative dimension known as the Black Lodge, and we later see that his doppelganger, who is mixed with the spirit of Killer Bob, is on loose in society. My favorite scene is with brothers Jerry and Benjamin Horne, who have a similar yet age dynamic from the 1990s, and is a scene filled with laughs about women and marijuana. In part 1, we see a character named William Hastings get arrested for allegedly killing his girlfriend, whom he was looking into the occult nature of the world that Twin Peaks is set in. An intensely weird and captivating scene unfolds in his prison cell, where Will talks to his wife Phyllis, that always stuck out to me in the making of documentaries on the DVD/Blu-ray. You can see the actors love the material. I also love the scene where Evil Coop, or Mr. C, killing the woman Daria, who was conspiring to have him killed. The scene is certainly uncomfortable and stretched out as bearable tension, and is not as much graphic as it is intense. Another notable scene for me was the ominous instructing Patrick Fischler, who returns to the Lynch world for the first time since the diner scene in Mulholland Drive. Like parts 1 and part 2, 3 and 4 premiered at the same time and could play like a 2-hour movie. However, I do not suggest that, because to me it is integral to see the credit starring Kyle MacLachlan appear while a band is playing at the Roadhouse. This episode is very trippy, as it shows Dale Cooper leaving the Black Lodge and returning through a light socket, but not without jumping out into space after being guided by a strange woman who has no eyes. The scene with the eyeless woman is very reminiscent of Eraserhead, and it is so cool to see a scene like that shot in 2017. It has to have driven younger people to the movie, which makes me thrilled. I got extremely excited the first time watching this episode because we get to see the return of Gordon Cole, played by the man himself, David Lynch. A high point of the series is the focus on his character. Wally Brando, played by Michael Cera, is a fan favorite character, and he is in part 4 as the son of Andy and Lucy, dressed like Marlon Brando when he was in the 1950s biker movie, The Wild One. We also get to see Naomi Watts' character for the first time, Janie E., who is Dougie's wife. When Dale Cooper returns to the real world, he seems to have had another twin of sorts, and the man disappears on his arrival. Dale replaces Dougie, having come out of the light socket where he was, and Dougie goes to the Black Lodge, where he must have been created to turn a snap into nothing whatsoever. I love seeing the currently mentally challenged Dale struggle at every turn to only have a Black Lodge magic at the casino, where he becomes known as Mr. Jackpots and wins over 400 grand. Part of the genius of Twin Peaks The Return, in my opinion, is the thumbing of the nose of fans' wants and expectations of how the smooth and young FBI agent Dale Cooper is shown in this season. The now older Dale does not jump into action in the real world. He barely even functions in his day-to-day activity. Yet he does, and we see him in a child-like form who chugs coffee and forgets how to pee. The whole office dynamic at Lucky 7 Insurance is lots of fun, and I love seeing known spaz Tom Sizemore in a role here as a meek and somewhat sleazy insurance salesman who Dale accuses of lying. This episode also stands out with another intense scene of sexualized violence, this time with Richard Horne, as he smokes and mistreats a woman at the Roadhouse while the saxophone roars as the band Trouble song Snake Eyes plays. Part 6 finally shows us the mysterious Diane, and she is played by none other than star and David Lynch veteran of Wild at Heart and Blue Velvet, Laura Dern. In the original show, Dale used to talk to someone named Diane in a tape-recorded journaling his lived experience of the investigation of the murder of Laura Palmer, and in my opinion as a viewer, she was a figment of his imagination. That theory fell apart when we see Laura Dern as Diane, but this is not the only female trouble. Janie E. learns that Dougie got 2 rides from Jane, the prostitute, who the real Dougie was seen at the time of the body swap. Someone even made a Twin Peaks meme with the line, "Jade gives 2 rides," as the cover to a fake porno movie that I thought was hilarious. But back to the storyline, it flows into separate storylines like more episodes do here, in a way that I find satisfying over repeated reviewings. This is a fun episode, but at this point, there is perhaps too much narrative cohesion for the nature of the story of the show that is Twin Peaks: The Return. However, all of that is redeemed with Part 8. Anyways, we see Diane and Mr. C reunite in a sort of way through a prison conversation, meaning she is talking to him through glass, and he is messing with her mind in his ominous Killer Bob vibe way. At the end of the episode, Mr. C busts out of the joint by scaring the warden with mentioned ominous Killer Bob vibes, and reunites with the dingus Ray to find David Bowie's character, Philip Jeffries, despite David Bowie being dead and unable to reprise his role. People who do TV write-ups were infuriated with this show, and I do not blame them, given how densely subjective it all is. But this episode showing Diane and Cooper, in a form at least, talk is a long-desired moment for fans. Part 8 of Twin Peaks: The Return is one of the greatest episodes of television, certainly of the decade, and perhaps of all time. And the only thing I can compare it to is 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like 2001, it is interpretive and clustering, doing away with conventional narrative to deal in symbols and shows bizarre images, seemingly disparate, but ultimately connected and ultimately more satisfying than linearity in this case. The dark poem recited in the end, as well as the use of the song Threnody for the Victims of Hiroshima, always captivates me despite me having seen it many, many times. It will always be a favorite moment of mine. The complete abandonment of the narrative up until that point is such a bold move that I wish more people in television would consider this, so I cannot call this episode influential, but it is certainly visionary. Having been betrayed by the dingus Ray in the beginning of episode 8, a bloody Mr. C staggers towards his rendezvous farm to reunite with Jennifer Jason Leigh's character named Chantal, as well as her boyfriend played by Tim Roth named Hutch. I love the reunion of these characters from the Hateful Eight, now in the Lynchian universe, and appropriately playing Southern criminals with open-minded views of sharing partners. We are back to story mode here, and there was an emphasis on Major Briggs, who was certainly a gatekeeper of the psychedelic realms in the original show, and had laid down clues before his disappearance for season 3. The scene with his widow, Betty, talking about destiny and revealing to the Twin Peaks cops a clue to enter a parallel dimension is my favorite scene in the episode because of the certainty she speaks of when describing a prophecy. Richard Horne, the son of Audrey Horne, is played horrible in part 10. Having already killed a child in the show, he then beats up a very overweight female witness nearly to death, despite us not seeing it. The dialogue leading up to it, then the charge into the trailer, is messed up. Then he beats up his grandmother to get her money. Oh, the humanity of it all. On a lighter note, Janie E and Dougie have one of the weirdest and funniest sex scenes because while they are both beautiful to look at, he is mentally challenged at this point of the show. Seeing both of their reactions is pretty hilarious, and while Lynch has been steadily accused of misogyny, I think it is fair to depict roughness between males and females, as long as you never condone it with the messaging of the text. And this sex scene is just funny. Part 11 is a classic. I love the scene where Gordon Cole almost gets swept up by the dirty hobo ghosts from Part 8, and a scene with lots of cool low-grade but stylized CGI, ending with a head explosion. The "Why is this happening?" fat lady monologue is also a standout of the series, where Bobby Briggs asks this woman to get her hand off the horn, and she explodes into a monologue with some serious emphatic rhythm to it. As far as the narrative episodes go, this one has one of the best endings, with the replacement Horn brothers for the series, the Mitchum brothers, almost killing Dougie, only for them to learn to love him. All of this has to be seen to believe, and I remember me and my friends loving this episode when it was realized the week because it just has all those rewarding elements of a good Twin Peaks storyline. Part 12 begins the epic storyline of Charlie and Audrey looking for Billy, in a storyline that comes back in part 13, 14, and 16 that is as amusingly insightful into relationships as it is rambling surrealism. In this bit, Audrey Horne establishes that she thinks her funny-looking husband, Charlie, is pathetic. She is having sex with the currently missing Billy, and Charlie does not want to go out because he's so sleepy and has so much paperwork to catch up on. Sarah Palmer has an episode in a grocery store about some beef jerky that is really intense, and in fact, actress Grace Zabriskie is one of the best returning actresses in this show. I always felt her presence in her limited scenes. On top of all this, you have Gordon Cole impressing a French woman in a drawn-out scene where they talk, she leaves, and Gordon Cole still stands there until the expositional dialogue eventually comes. We get some serious gangster stuff in this episode, starting off with Mr. C tracking down Ray in some gangster Batcave, leading to Mr. C toying and crushing the boss here in an arm wrestle. Mr. C then kills the boss and has Ray to himself, where he gets some more mysterious Philip Jeffries information through coordinates. And the scene ends with us seeing Richard Horne see who he thinks is Dale Cooper at last. Dougie almost gets poisoned, but his superior instinct allows him to prevail, and the Mitchum brothers' love for him continues, with gifts being showered down his way. We also return to Ed Hurley, who was a major character in the original show, and see James Hurley perform the sickness-inducing "With You" song at the high-pitched helium voice delivery like the original show. There is some fun psychedelic imagery to be seen in Part 14, where the Twin Peaks cops go to the mysterious coordinates at the right time that Betty Briggs gave them, resulting in Deputy Andy getting sucked into a vortex. He sees some things that may be the future, and then returns with the woman with no eyes, who helped Dale Cooper return to the world of the real, who he says is in danger and they need to protect. We also get a great scene with Gordon Cole recalling his Monica Belushi dream, which suggests that Dale Cooper may not be the savior we all think him to be, and the scene that culminates with Diane not being entirely of the flesh. My favorite Sarah Palmer scene is also to be seen in this episode, when she does some magic that ends with her being capable of biting off someone's throat, which was totally wonderful. Big Ed Hurley's wife, Nadine, kicks off the scene after being inspired by Twin Peaks' Dr. Jacoby's Alex Jones-esque online show to take charge of her life, and allows her husband to be with the woman he loves. That sequence is the sweetest sequence of the series and provides levity that is very pleasant as the log lady dies and Dougie shocks himself into a coma after hearing the name Gordon Cole mentioned. Part 15 is an episode that is pretty high on plotting and tying up some necessary loose ends. It feels like things are gaining traction and is entertaining throughout. I think seeing Big Ed get together with Norma has more resonance with me than the log lady's final call with Deputy Hawk, despite those scenes throughout the series being extremely sweet, knowing that the actress knew she was going to die. Part 16 will always be remembered for the line, "I am the FBI." Even though I love the inverted delivery of Cooper's character to subvert the audience expectations, seeing him come back is awesome. As viewers who stuck with the show, we deserve such a moment. So to see him come back brought tears to me the first few times I watched the episode, and now it puts a solid grin on my face. I love seeing Philip Jeffries in this episode as a giant talking tea kettle who sounds like David Bowie, even though we all know that David Bowie was dead at this point, and it is just a sound like. Everything is set up for the big finale, and I remember just craving for a week for part 17 and 18 like I had never craved for a finale for a show in my entire life. And in large part, it was due to the "I am the FBI" line. Part 17 is a resolution that a lot of viewers would want from this series, but David Lynch does not have it within him to provide to them a final word from the world of Twin Peaks. It has a showdown with the spirit of Killer Bob, Dale Cooper back to Twin Peaks, with essential characters of Twin Peaks The Return, and he even saves the life of Laura Palmer. The death of Laura Palmer kicked off the original series, so that might seem like an open-shut case, closed proposition to the viewer, but as always with Lynch, the truth is beneath the surface. If one is afraid of the truth, then they should probably just end the series on this note, as it is incredibly satisfying in a more traditional sort of way. Part 18 is the dark truth. Killer Bob is the evil that men do, and Judy is the spirit that makes sure there is a balance between the light and the dark, so do not tamper with what is and what has been. When you do that, Judy really throws you a dark curveball. The world is murdered and reborn in different identities in a complex transcendental meditation riddle that will perplex whoever watches this episode. The episode is more unsettling than shocking, which makes it more disturbing knowing that there is hubris in pursuing good things to an unreasonable extent, and that folly will always travel with us. Instead of reassuring us that everything will be alright, we get this enigmatic ending that truly is one of the darkest punchlines to any series finale. But perhaps Wisteria, David Lynch's new Netflix show, will outdo this.